Hello, good morning. Is this the right one? No, it's not. Technology. There we go. Hang on. Is it even going to do it? Unlocked. Technology issues off the bat. There we go. Fanciness. You're in the good camera now. That's where you deserve to be. Good morning, good evening, good day. Welcome to the show. We're going to have our guest, Gohar Vardanyan, today. And we're going to do something we haven't done before, which is what we're going to call a watch party. So Gohar recently recorded an amazing video where she performed the suite, the lute suite, BWV 997. She's going to join us and we're going to watch through the different movements and talk about it, which I think is going to be really fun. We get some music, we get some insights, and it's just going to be an all-around fun time. And of course, we can communicate in the chat. We can ask some questions towards the end, which I think is going to be great. Yeah, thank you, Matt. We do have some nice plants in the background. It's a little CGC menagerie now, a little shrubbery. And I don't know where else to go from that, but maybe we need a big palm on this side or something. Hans, g'day. Yoko, good morning. Heidi, greetings from Dresden. Thank you for staying up. Dave and Nikki, thank you for being there in the chat. Thane, great to see you. It's really nice of everyone to join us. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes, and then I'll do the little Skype dance when we call up Gohar, and we'll get underway. But for all of those of you who are in Guitarist, all of the replays are up now inside the Academy to enjoy. Thanks, Nikki, for putting all of those together, and the open mic performances are there as well, which is fantastic. Hey, Brent. Dave is listening in from Harvard, Massachusetts. Great. Stephen is there. Wonderful. And James Erickson's there. Hi, James. Thanks for joining us. Great. Well, I did tell Gohar 9:05, so why don't we give our special guest a call? We'll do a little Skype dance and get underway. Here we go. Cross your fingers. I forgot to do the dance. Hello.
Oh,
hang on.
hello.
I need to do this thing now. Ready?
Oh, yes.
So much technology today. It's more than usual. Great to see you.
Well, it's better than hearing yourself twice, right? Oh.
Great to see you, and I think from everybody a belated
you too.
Happy birthday. You had a birthday recently.
Yes, thank you. I just had my chocolate cake that a student brought into a lesson.
That's a good student.
Very good student. I didn't have chocolate cake. Actually, I didn't have any cake on my birthday, but that situation has been remedied. So
yeah, nice. So how have you been? It's been, I think you may be the first guest on the CGC show. It may be possible, either the first or the second.
I think we did this about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, because I hadn't moved yet. We did this sometime in September, I think, last year.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you back. I know everyone loves having you here at CGC. People are already saying hello in the chat.
I see. I can't see this. Oh, maybe I can. Look on my iPad, probably, right?
You could, yeah, you could watch the delayed broadcast on YouTube. That would work.
I'll just mute everything.
But we'll take some questions towards the end. And
sure.
But I think because we've got some serious music to be listening to, we should probably get underway soon. So tell us a little bit. We'll start out. The piece that you performed and recorded on YouTube is the Bach Lute Suite BWV 997. Why did you choose the piece to record? What struck you out of this piece?
Yeah, well, I love Bach. That's just like a statement I'm going to make. It's also the only lute suite I hadn't played yet. I've played the fourth lute suite in college. That was on my senior recital. I played the first lute suite in grad school. That was on my grad school recital. I learned the 995, the third lute suite, and I recorded that for my CD last year. And I think we maybe talked about that last time. And then it's like, well, I always loved number 2, and I guess I saved best for last. So I had to learn it, and this is the one that there's not a single movement in the suite that I'm like, could have lived without it, because like all of the other ones, like No offense to the beret, but if I never hear that beret from the first Lit Suite, like it'll be okay. I'll be okay. All of them had a movement where you play it because you have to, but you don't miss it. In this one, every single movement was like, I have to play this. So yeah, I started learning it in spring 2020. So as soon as I was done editing the CD and like kind of getting over listening to 995 over and over and over again while I was editing it, I started learning it. And on and off, of course, like it's been about 18 months before the recording, but I didn't get to play it every single day because for a period of time I had to take a break and practice other repertoire for concerts and stuff since concerts are starting to come back and stuff. So yeah, it's just the love for the music. I might probably will take like a little break from Bach going forward and learn some other things because it takes a long time to learn Bach in general. But I'm sure I'm going to come back and learn like another sonata or another suite or something soon.
That is nice. So around 18 months was how long you
Yeah,
worked on it?
on and off. Like from the day I started reading the music and the Prelude, I always flirted with. Like I think I actually memorized the Prelude when I was a teenager, which doesn't really count. I played the notes. That doesn't really count, and it was totally different fingerings. But I didn't remember anything, so it was like learning from scratch. So yeah, from the start of reading the notes to a point where I felt like, okay, it sounds good enough where I could take that snapshot in time of how I play it now and share it with people. I'm sure if I continue playing it, it'll probably change.
Great. All right. Well, let's have a listen to the Prelude.
Okay, sounds good.
We have to clap every time. It's a wonderful performance. Thank you, Gohar. That's just beautiful. So I see you're actually also in the chat on YouTube at the same time. Now
I know.
that's impressive.
Multitasking. I
Yeah,
got this
absolutely.
going on. Apparently, this is really behind
Yes,
because you
it
were
has a delay.
clapping while I was still playing. So,
Yeah, no, there
yeah,
is
I
like
had
a 30-second delay or something.
the amount of technology that is in this apartment is
Well,
it slowly has turned into a Hollywood studio.
well, I was going to talk about that later, but I think that's a nice
Sure. No,
segue.
no, we can. Yeah.
I think you are a prime example of a modern musician who has embraced multimedia. Some people maybe did it out of necessity in 2020, but I feel like you did it before that. You came to it early, and you really clearly mastered. I mean, the video looks great, sounds great, the set is fantastic, and it's very slick. I mean, come on, there's a slide going on in the
There's a
image.
spider there.
I mean, I'm gonna do this.
That's my new toy. It's my new toy. I got. I ordered that in February. I was on a wait list. It came at finally in June. Like I had to wait for like 5 months until they had it back in stock. Yeah. And then the first time I used it was for this special this moment.
So how have you found the last? I mean, has that helped you out having those multimedia skills over the last couple of years? You did some online concerts, and obviously you've already got the YouTube following. So did you
Well,
find?
I think I like, for example, the transition from online to, I mean, sorry, from in person to online because of what's happening. Maybe for someone who hadn't done it before, it could have been like a big change of like, oh my gosh, I have to teach online. But I've been doing that. I can't remember, maybe like 2014, the first Skype student I had, he was from Panama actually, and then I just had like one or two in the beginning because I guess it wasn't really that popular and people didn't think it was possible. But later on, before COVID, it was, I don't know, half my students were online. So the medium of teaching on a two-dimensional screen in front of a camera, that wasn't news. It's just that it switched to everything being online. Making videos, that was also, I feel like when you were in New York, like that's how kind of we got to be friends because we were doing similar things. You were making instructional videos, I was making instructional videos. We were kind of, the battle wounds we had, compare our battle wounds to each other. But so that wasn't news. It's just the quantity changed.
Right.
And so I didn't really feel a difference. I'm still doing exactly the same thing. The only thing that has changed over time is the equipment has been upgraded and fancier things are getting introduced, like a slider, for example.
Well, it looks fantastic. So congratulations on mastering that and the guitar. Pretty good guitar as well.
Yes, yeah, multi.
Nikki, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat Gohar's YouTube channel, since we were mentioning a YouTube channel, so if you could put that in the chat and people could go over there and subscribe and see all of Gohar's wonderful videos. But we're going to move on to the fugue now. But before we get to that, I did want to see if this is going to work. I'm going to try and play a little excerpt of this piece being played on a Lauten work. And that is... what this piece was originally written for. It's a keyboard operated instrument that also is kind of hybrid lute keyboard. So
yeah, the lute harpsichord, is that what they call it, right?
Yeah, and it's got a particular sound. It's sort of half harpsichord, half lute. Let me see if I can make this work. I'm just not going to see anything, but you should be able to hear it hopefully. Let me try.
Well, I can. Oh, I'll see it on my iPad, the other screen that's in front of me.
Okay. I don't know if this is working. No. I don't think that's working. Okay.
If you find the link, maybe you can share it with all of us.
Sure,
We can
yeah,
watch
I mean, you can head over to Wikipedia for this piece, like just Google Lute Suite BWV997, and you'll actually find some examples of this being played on a Lauten work. So it's an interesting sound. It's gives a little bit of insight into the background of this. Now this fugue, you mentioned, there's just every movement's fantastic, but I would have to say this fugue is probably a stumbling block for people learning this piece because the Prelude is very manageable. I think the Sarabande and the jig, the double is quite tricky as well, but the fugue is...
You'll see so many recordings of it with missing the fugue. Like,
right.
all the movements are there except for the fugue. Yeah, it's well, any fugue you play on a guitar, probably on any instrument, but any fugue you play, it's going to make you stumble. It's just there is so much going on. I started learning from the fugue when I started learning when I said I started reading in the spring. That was the first movement I went to because I knew that the prelude I would manage, the saraband I would do, the double also I started early because the double is difficult because of the sheer speed. The notes, like, sure, there's like two lines that are not comfortable, and anyone watching it will be able to tell that my fingers are just like crazy on the fretboard. But other than the speed, it's doable. The fugue, besides being able to play everything, there are voices that need to come out, and there are voices that need to be kept ringing. And actually, a lot of the fingerings. So I used Frank Kuntz's edition. I answered that in the comments, and I like his editions a lot. And I think because of the playability, sometimes he would notate that a note is supposed to be ringing, but he puts a cross across it, or like a double line cutting the tie, meaning like it's impossible to hold, let's say, right? Like it should be held, but the fingering won't allow it. Well, I changed some of those fingerings to hold those notes, which means that my fingers were like dislocating from from where they had to be to try to hold them over and not cut them. And I think I don't know, it adds to the effect when you can hear everything ringing. And the other part was that I played it faster because playing faster helps you hold those notes. The decay of the note, just like if I play it too slowly, even if I have my finger on it, the note is not going to ring. So I had to practice now to be able to play it at a faster tempo to maintain all the voices that I wanted to maintain the ringing. So that definitely.
Basically, you looked at the fugue and you said, you know what, this isn't hard enough. I want to extend the impossible fingerings.
Because
I think I'll play it faster. You know.
Secretly, we're all masochists here. It's like, it's not hard enough. Let me see how I can make it harder. It's just, I was going to spend so many months working on it. And if I could do it, why not? Like, I didn't want to just to like give up on it just because like, yeah, whatever. If it was, there were some places that it was impossible. Like literally I needed another finger to be able to do it. But if it was possible and if my hand could do it, I tried to do it, to hold the notes and not cut them. But that means that it took longer.
Sure.
That's the one that I practiced continuously, minus like the times that I have to take off. But when the fugue started to come together, that's when I started like really working on the other movements, the fugue and the double. When they started to come together, that's how I knew like, okay, it's time to like work on the other movements and prepare for recording it.
Great. All right, well, let's have a listen to
All
the
right.
fugue. Round of applause for Gohar.
Oops.
Sorry, I should have given you more warning about it coming back on. I was getting enthralled in the music.
It's
Beautiful.
really behind. I didn't realize, but when I was watching.
Just beautiful, Gohar. It's really fantastic. And as a few questions are coming in about your process, and sort of just to reiterate, yes, Gohar is doing everything. So if you watch the end credits of a movie, you see best boy grip, you see cinematography, you
No,
see lighting
Gohar.
design, costume, and all of it says Gohar. Every single one.
Yeah.
Now, the question I wanted to ask you about this is, when you approach a movement of this scope and this challenging, how did you approach practice?
So I actually did it exactly the same how I would do everything else. It's just that I knew it's going to take longer. My approach when I learn music is I sight read it. In this case, I read the whole entire suite, 20 minutes of it, just to, I don't know, see what surprises are headed my way. Just so I know like the big picture of the things that are going to be difficult, the things that are going to be easy. And then I play it slowly, trying to decipher it. And if I read something enough times, certain muscle memory develops. So I'm no longer like reading and figuring out the notes, but I see something, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that thing. I might not be able to do that thing very well. That's when the actual practicing comes in, but I'll read it until I'm fairly fluent, like getting from point A to point B under tempo, of course. And then I'll start kind of putting the metronome and playing that to a metronome at a slow tempo. So I know I'm playing the right rhythms, how everything fits. And I'll do that for as long as it takes. I kind of take a very natural approach to learning it. I don't rush it because no one is rushing me. I think I've just been lucky that way, and I don't have to learn pieces for competitions. I don't have to, there are no more exams. So I have all the time I want to learn a piece. So I do it naturally without killing myself in the process, to like learn in a rushed hodgepodge way. And the difficult spots, you just start to practice them like slowly in the sections to like play it really clean, really like listening to all the voices. For the fugue, I was trying to figure out how I'm going to hold voices and what voices I'm going to hold. So then I forced myself to play every single voice separately. Like you see, like mostly it's three, two really happening at the same time, and there's might be third, like in a bass line. But I would go through it, linearly and just play all the voices on their own to hear what they sound like. So when I put them all together, I can pick them out. Because if I just play all the notes at the same time, it's hard to pick out a certain voice and follow it if you don't know what it sounds like. But as soon as you know what it sounds like, you can pick out that note so much faster out of a chord, because like, oh yeah, that's the one that went up or down or whatever. So I did that to the fugue. I did that to the double because it has bass lines. Not all throughout, because some of them wasn't that, it wasn't that interesting. It was just bass line on every single measure to understand what's happening. And then just kept playing it. With this one, I honestly just kept playing it and playing it. I recorded and posted like little videos on Instagram, but during that time, I did that for myself as well, because as I was playing it and recording, hearing back, I could see like, okay, am I actually doing the phrasing I think I am doing? And oftentimes those videos, of course, did not end up on Instagram, but I would record and I would play and be like, well, I thought that was more emotional than it was. And then I listened back, I was like totally flat. So then I would have to do it again. But it taught me something. It taught me that I had to do way more than I thought I was doing for me to listen, to hear it on a recording, which means then the audience would be able to hear it. So that's how the Instagram videos work. They're for myself, and then if they come out well, they get shared. But initially it's practice. And then time, because it is a lot of material. The fugue was memorized. I wanted to memorize it because it's just hard to play reading it. The other ones, like you'll see in the video, sometimes I look at the music because my intent was to memorize the whole entire suite. And it was mostly because I didn't want to look like I'm looking at the music on a video. I wanted to play from memory when I was recording it. But doing it, like, it was going to add another month of work. And I just figured, you know what? Not a big deal. I'm going to have the music in front of me. I'm basically playing from memory, but for like that security blanket feeling of like, because you're more responsible for what you're doing, I had the music in front of me so I could glance at it and feel more comfortable that I know where I am. So it took about 18 months of doing that.
Right.
Taking breaks helps because you come back to it and it actually had time to settle a little bit, even though if I didn't play it for like a couple of weeks or even a month, you come back, you kind of remember it and it starts to feel more, you end up actually playing better than you did a month before, even though you didn't touch it for a month, because it just like your brain had time to compartmentalize all of the information, the phrasing, the feelings for the piece. Yeah.
And I know Nikki has your Instagram link, so maybe Nikki, you can pop that into the chat, and people can have a look at those. I remember seeing a few of those videos coming up, and it's always really
Yeah.
interesting seeing people's process. So it'd be fun to go and have a look at.
The thing is also like some of those videos are very early on. So sometimes I get that question, it's like, how long did it take you to learn, right? This came up now. There is a difference. Like I can sight read the Saraband, for example. Within a few times, I can make it sound good sight reading it. And so someone was like, well, why did it take you 18 months? But it's in the beginning, like even though I can make it sound good in little sections, having spent very little time, I don't feel like it's internalized enough. And I like to give it enough time to mature, to realize like, okay, this is how I actually want to play. So even though like the jig actually came together pretty fast in terms of like reading the notes, but I would never record it like a year ago, even though I could play it a year ago. I wouldn't record it a year ago and say like, this is how I want to play the jig. I wanted to allow time for me to really settle and be like, yes, this is how I want to play it. Because the more you play it, the more things you discover. And then what if like I recorded it and saved it in the vault, and then now I play it a little differently and I like it more. So I just give that time to let the piece mature.
I like what you said earlier on in our conversation, where you said this is a snapshot. And
Yeah.
because these pieces, the question of how long does it take you to learn something, these are never really learned. They live with us. They become sort of friends, and they change over time as we change, as our understanding changes, our experiences change. Like you might change fingerings because of a performance. You might change fingerings because of other things you're influenced by. Maybe you talk to some lute scholar or a Bach scholar, and they say, well, actually, you should do this. Okay, and so it changes and morphs over time. Sort of speaking to that, Jim asked, do you listen to other guitarists play the same piece? For example, the fugue, did you have a particular player that you listened to?
Well, over time, like you, I have obviously heard different people play it. Whenever I learn a piece, I like to just sort of maybe listen to it once or twice just to remind myself like what it is that I'm learning. I listened to Manuel Barrueco's recording. That's how I got the idea of playing faster, because he's playing faster than the other recordings or that generally I've heard of this piece. And at first I was like, it kind of sounds really nice when it's slow. The beginning, especially like the opening and stuff. And so when I was playing it, I'm like, I'm going to play this slow. When I first learned it, it's like, this sounds so much better when it's under tempo. But then the more I learned it and the more I realized like, oh, my fingers can actually do it faster, I realized that I see why he chose the faster tempo. So I use that as a reference to, as an idea like, hey, it's okay to do it. Like you get an idea what it sounds like fast and to work towards it to see what it sounds like. But generally, after a certain point, I don't listen to other people, because when you have so many years of experience playing, you already know what you want it to sound like. And you want it to sound like you. You don't want to be somebody else's copy. So I listen for reference. If it's a piece I've never heard before, of course, I'll go and just see what it sounds like. But I'm not going to like compare. I did that more during the student years because you really learn by imitation. So in the past, I would listen and try to imitate that because it gives you ideas and it teaches you how to do something that already exists. But after a certain point, you have your ideas. You know how you want it to sound. You just need to get there by practicing.
Well, let's move on now to the Saraband, this beautiful slow movement. So here we go.
Yay, thank you.
How do we get this up? Sorry, I'm messing around with technology again. What was in the room? Oh, we've got three of me. Oh, good God.
Oh boy.
Sorry, it keeps going to the wrong camera. Beautiful again. I just love that piece. It is one of my favorite moments in all the guitar music is when it goes to the C major in the second section.
Yeah.
It's just.
I just wish there was some connection. Did you see me like hold that C chord for like, I don't know, forever? I know that's how it is. It's the second time there is no connection, but I felt like, especially when it's in the recording, I didn't actually know how to edit that. Like, I feel like, are people gonna think the video froze? Because that's why I could put a zoom in there, so it kind of like feels like yes, it's keeps going because you're holding a slow movement for 3 beats for the C chord. But yeah, it's absolutely. I love that the Saraban. It's so beautiful.
I think you have such a wonderful sound, and I think your pairing with you and the guitar is fantastic. I think you've found an instrument that really suits your level of playing. So, and people are asking about it. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your guitar and the strings that you use and your approach? Yeah.
Well, I play the Jean Rompre. I think most people know it by now because I always I actually put it in the video because it's one of the most common questions that I get. It's, I don't know, 2012. I bought it in 2013. So I've been playing it for 8, 9 years. I like this. I realized that there are so many different instruments now, and the way you play matters to what instrument you get. Like personally, I tried a small one, for example, and small ones are amazing. They sound huge, like just sustain is amazing. And I was playing on it, and in my hands, it sounded awful. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I make this beautiful guitar sound good? And I was playing the Rondo introduction in Rondo by Aguado, and I play that with rest strokes when the scales come in. So I play hard in general. And I don't think that's how you're supposed to play on a small one, because as soon as I played a Scarlatti Sonata that was all free stroke, that's when the guitar sounded like it was supposed to, like what I would imagine a small one sounds like and what it sounds like in other people's hands. But I'm not going to change the way I play for the guitar. I play with volume. I push the instrument. And this one, it gives it to me. It doesn't matter how loud I play on it and how hard I play on it. It doesn't crack. Like it doesn't sound like I'm overplaying it. I mean, I can make it overplay, but that's unnecessary. So it just, when I tried, I was like, this is for me, because I wasn't afraid to play on it. I would just go for things, and it would give me the fullness and the volume that I wanted. I play on normal tension strings. The tension, I prefer normal tension. It gives you more availability for vibrato. If this hard tension, it's harder to do vibrato because it's just a stiffer string. I don't feel like I need the extra volume. So a lot of times people put hard tension strings on because they want extra volume because you can push them harder. But I already have a very loud guitar and I'm a loud player, so I didn't need that extra. But nylon strings, that's the other thing. I use nylon, normal tension. That allows you for that sweetness. And yet with the guitar, I can do the volume. I play the RC Recital Strings. So RC Royal Classics, they go by RC. They have so many different kinds of strings. Mine is Recital, and it only comes in medium tension. Medium normal, it's the same thing. And I switched to nylon like the last 2 years of college, undergraduate. I used to play on Savarez Alliances because those were like brilliant, loud, nice strings. But they would eat up my nails because I play hard. The carbon strings are thinner. And they would wear out. They would put like little niches in my nails. So that means like whenever I would get that, I would have to file my nails shorter, and I would wear them out faster. When I first made the switch to nylon, it was such a letdown. It was awful, that feeling like I was coming from carbon that sounded so big and brilliant. And I switched to nylon, I'm like, where is the sound? But it took like a month or two of playing only nylon strings. I got used to it. And now if I hear carbon, it pierces my ears. Like I can't do carbon. And it saved my nails too. I don't wear them out as easily. So yeah, that's what I've played. I think I will play this guitar until it literally dies on me, unless an airline breaks it or something. I don't have any intentions of changing it because it serves me for now.
It's great. It's a wonderful matchup between the two of you. Let's now have a listen. I might put the jig and double together because I think they kind of belong together.
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, and the way I edited it, it's meant to be like it just melts into the other. So.
All right, let's have a listen to the jig and the double. Yay. Just wonderful. So the closing credit there was for your Patreon. And Nikki, if you wouldn't mind putting in Gohar's Patreon link. Patreon is a way that people can follow and support the artists that put out so much of this amazing stuff that we can freely consume. And Gohar does a lot of teaching and other performances. And so it's probably the best way to follow her. So if you want to support Gohar and also follow closely what she's doing, you can head on over to Patreon. Gohar, that's what a treat to have you with us and share that performance. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for playing it for everyone. This is great.
So what's next? I know you said you might take a bit of a break from Bach. Do you have another big recording project looking towards the future?
Yes. Well, I don't know if it's going to be for recording. So for Bach, I had no intentions of playing this in concert. This was specifically done to record it. But I do need to like change up repertoire in like concert repertoire because I'm getting sick of the pieces I'm playing for a while. Rossiniana number 1 is on the music stand on the butchering block right now. I've been toying around with the Capriccio Diabolico Tedesco, kind of learned it, kind of stopped it. Then Bach came in between and I devoted all the time to Bach. So I might go back to Capriccio Diabolico. Those are 2 major pieces though, like 10 minutes for the Capriccio and I don't know, 15 minutes for the Rossiniana. So I might have to prioritize one and then do the other. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of like an Italian program, totally unintentional, but you have Tedesco and you have Giuliani. And I was learning, I kind of already know the Paganini Sonata in E. So I might make like a half a program that's only Italian and the other half like only Spanish. So those are what's on the list now. We'll see. I might change. Like sometimes I'll read the music and be like, that was fun. Okay, but I don't want to spend any more time on it. And I change it. I start learning another piece that sticks that I want to keep around for 2-3 years. Because if it's meant for concerts, I'm going to play the same piece for at least 2-3 years before I switch out.
Wonderful. Looking forward to them. I saw a couple of questions coming into the chat. We've got 5 more minutes, so we can probably take
I
some
can
questions.
answer all of them. I don't know how long you go with the live stream, but
We normally
I can
try
answer.
and keep it to the hour, so it's 6 more minutes. So we can pick a couple of. Jim had another question. Any tips on? Let me make sure I put this up. Any tips on left-hand fingers finding the right spot? You play too fast to be able to see where every finger goes, especially moving up and down the fretboard. So left-hand accuracy.
First of all, if you're playing too fast to land in the right spot, then you're just playing too fast. If you play slow enough and you look where you're going, you will be able to land in the right spot. If you can't, you're just playing too fast. But then when you're practicing really slowly and you watch, I look at my left hand. I'm one of those players that looks, even though I can't play anything blindfolded because it's like any professional player can play blindfolded. But I choose to look because I will not miss things as much as if I played blindfolded and accidentally landed like a little bit short and buzzed the note, right? So you teach yourself by like looking, being very specific, and eventually that becomes your muscle memory. So if I've taught my finger to land, especially in the first position when you have like an inch of space, in the higher positions your frets are smaller, so chances are you will land in the right spot. But when I've taught myself to like stretch that little bit extra to reach to the fret wire, that's what my finger gets trained to do. So as I speed up gradually from there, I will land in the right spot. But if you go too fast too soon, you're going to be sloppy, and that's what you're teaching your finger. So if it wasn't landing in the right spot, it will not land or if it does, it's by accident that it lands in the right spot.
And I
so it's all in practice. Yeah.
I liked your comment before about, there's no rush, no one's rushing me, I'm going to take my time. You were talking about learning the piece back then, but it's similarly in bringing your technique up to the speed that you want as your goal tempo. It's a similar approach of just, you have to give your body some time.
I take my time. I never play too fast before I can, because that's a sure way to get an injury too. Because when you play faster than you are ready, you're going to become more tense when you're playing. And when you play with tense hands long enough, eventually your hands are going to let you know. So I take my time. So eventually, like, muscle memory is there. It becomes easier and easier, and then eventually it gets faster and faster. But sometimes it can take months to get there. The thing is, I do, like, on Instagram, if you scroll down far enough, you will see, like, I shared like a snippet of how slowly I practiced the fugue. I think I shared it on the fugue, like ridiculously slow. It was one note per beat at 50 or something like that. it's painful, but that's what needed to be done to choreograph what happens in between notes, because that's what we forget. Like if you want to play something really, really fast, it needs to be so efficient that you're not wasting time in between notes. And you can only do that if you slow down and see like what are your fingers doing going from one note to the next note. Can you prepare ahead of time? So all of these I practiced at a painfully slow 50 for eighth note. I think, yeah, for the fugue it was the eighth note.
How many times might you repeat a small section if you're working on just half a measure or two measures, whatever? How many times would you go over that?
I try to do at least 5, but the rule is I has to be 5 in a row perfect. If I mess up the 5th one, it goes down to 0, and then I have to do 5 more. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 10. Minimum 5. It just depends on how cruel I want to be to myself, but really it has to be in a row, because if you play 3 times right, 2 times wrong, that doesn't really count. 5 times in a row, that means like you were in control, you made it happen. Because if you do it once correctly, makes it possible. You do it twice correctly, then it's really possible. So if you mess up the 3rd time, it's because you weren't paying attention to what you were doing. But what's keeping you from doing it well again at the 3rd time, right? Like it's attention. Yeah. So that puts punishment for not paying attention, because now I have to do it again. So yeah, it's usually like between 5 and 10. It just really depends.
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing with some students, but I do it sometimes tentatively, because it's not for everybody, but it's effective. No. I think
it works with kids. I don't teach kids very often, or at all really now, but it becomes a game for them. So they'll actually do it. Like if you present it like a game, it comes like a game. Right. But that game works on adults too, because we're all like the same, really.
Well, thank you again, Gohar. Dave's been putting in some links, Instagram and whatnot, and obviously the Patreon's there in the links. Best way to follow.
For like all of the Patreon I have, it's more like if like the videos when they come out, it's gonna be a day earlier than everybody else. There is some like extra perks, like if people want to send me a recording of themselves playing for me to evaluate, that's kind of like what Patreon is on. I try not to bombard people on there, because it does send an email to them unless they turn off notifications. So I don't post like daily things on on Patreon that are public. It's only things that are meant for Patreon's subscribers only. So you're not gonna get like spammed with the messages. Instagram is where like everything is happening, like all the daily in between big videos, little practice things. That's where it is all the time.
Great.
And then time to time, there's a big video that comes up on YouTube.
Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us with the great questions and for watching Gohar's wonderful performance. We'll be back again next week, the same time. But let's give one round of applause, the international round of applause to Gohar. I know.
Thank you.
If you could hear everybody, there'd be a rapturous applause. All right, Gohar and everyone, take care, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.